What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we have another green day over here in the cryptocurrency market. We've got the Bitcoin price chart doing something we haven't seen it do. In the last 43 days, we have poked above $20,500. The same goes for Ethereum after breaking out of this range it's been stuck in for about a month. And really, the majority of the cryptocurrency market is green. So with moments like this, there becomes a lot of excitement. We'll review the charts. We'll get through them pretty quick this morning. This will be a shorter video. We're just going to cut straight to the point with everything because this is one of the busier weeks for me. I have a ton going on outside of just making my normal morning video. So with Bitcoin here, now poking above $20,500, 40 plus day range has been crossed above. The big question becomes, okay, now do we go to the moon? And the reality is we're still just ranging. I know a lot of times we look for like just that one green candle to be that it's the most significant thing in the world. But the reality is if you zoom out on it, right, then you just get a kind of clear picture. It's still ranging. We accept that for what it is. Things I was looking over here, like on Ethereum, is that, hey, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the head and shoulders because more times than not, what people are looking at and looking to be a head and shoulders ends up not being one. It's the very first pattern that anybody does learn when they start learning how to look at charts is a head and shoulders pattern. And so I always feel kind of dirty when I even bring it up on the YouTube channel because I just remember what it's like being new. And I know I look over there on TradingView and I know that this is what most people are always pointing. They're like, oh, everybody look at the head and shoulders that we have going on right here. But most of the time, that's not what it is. So essentially what we would have here for Ethereum would be a left shoulder, head, right shoulder, neckline breakdown. Up until this point, what is this? This would be a neckline throwback. Back on September 15th, we were looking at this as this was playing out at that time. The potential for a head and shoulders occurring right here. In the last few minutes, we actually are seeing some price action come out of Ethereum here. So we'll see if this leads to a bigger break in here, if this is some type of head and shoulders playing out. So, I keep my excitement in check right now with Ethereum back to where it's at. In a head and shoulders, you break a neckline, you go back and you hit the neckline, and that's the end of it. So right now, with where we sit today, that's where we're at. Then we look at things over here like Cardano, right? So Cardano has been one of the weaker ones, one of the ones that actually has taken out the May and June lows back in here, and we could see this potentially has throwback written all over it as well to come back and back test the broken support. And so even judging by how quickly Bitcoin's been moving, the ranges it's been operating within in here up until this point, still, it's not like it's gotten to some point where I'm screaming to myself, oh, something really big has happened here just yet. It is, a couple $100 above the range that we've really been stuck in for the last month and a half. But we haven't seen evidence of trend change emerge just yet. And so really to kind of get excited for me, it's like, I have to think about it of the context in which we're in. Right now, we're not in like a trending context, right? So like, let's pretend we were like, traveling our way up in an uptrend, right? And then finally a certain green candle comes that like continues the trend happening. That would be great. But when we're bouncing around in a range like this, and then, we get stuck here and we break out here, it's still in the ranging context. So it's not in a uptrend context. And so that's really just kind of my thoughts on it as I look at it. Now, one of the interesting things we are seeing is the US dollar currency index. We have been looking at this over the last couple of months, showing how there was so much reaction on the Fibonacci levels on its way up, hitting, backtesting, breaking, topping. And now for the first time, and I know this doesn't look like much when we look at the whole context of it, but we have a lower high and a lower low that's already been set in here. Still nothing like convincing has emerged to be like, oh wow, that's really crazy. But the reality is by the time something like that comes, the move's already happened. So we just kind of have to look at it and say, is that the move that's coming? By the time you sit here and say, see, look, this happened. Well, it's like, good job, Captain Hindsight. But even looking at strength indicators, we can see them rolling over on the daily time frame. On the weekly time frame, we see the weekly RSI kind of at the lowest level it's been at since February. So will we get a clean breakthrough here on the strength indicator? I would say with how the DXY has been behaving for the last year, this is one of the more stalled out points that it's had. And we've been pointing to this ever since then. So we've been looking at this ever since these days right back in here. And so far, so good. There we go. We have our first lower low happening in here. If you don't know what the DXY is, it's a US dollar currency index. It's the strength of the dollar versus a basket of currencies. People assume that it means that the dollar is overwhelmingly strong. Not necessarily. It just means it's stronger than other currencies. Like with inflation that we're seeing inflation worldwide. We're seeing inflation in the United States, tons of it. But it's worse in other places. But historically, when the DXY falls, that tends to be good for the cryptocurrency market. So looking for early indicators of that coming. Another thing we've seen out there has been that the stock market has had several good days in a row, finding support on the levels that we've been looking at over here on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. As I'm recording, it's pre-market. Looks like the Dow's down about 90 points. But for the last few days, it's been up several hundred points each day. So it's been strong in markets in general. And while Bitcoin has crossed above its 40+ day range in here, nothing super convincing has come out of here just yet. It's still in a ranging context right now. And even if we moved our way all the way back up into here, back up to $25,000, $26,000, it would still be a ranging context way up there. And so it's just got to be, for me, it's viewed as this is one big giant range. We've been operating here within it. If you guys remember back here at this time, there was getting a lot of excitement in there. I was saying, look, this is the dumb money zone. It's dubbed the dumb money zone. It's not something I invented, but this is the dumb money zone in here. And anything going on in the middle of right here is just real sketchy because it is just a giant range. And even like if we assume this is some big Wyckoff accumulation, you could even see things come back up to the top of the range and then revisit the bottom of the range once again, which is not something new. This is something we have been discussing and ironically enough, really operating on that same type of time schedule that we've been operating on so far. So cool to see the green. I think we're all looking for some green to come back in, but the next move that would make logical sense, whether or not it starts here, whether it pulls back down and keeps going. The most bullish thing I can imagine is really more of a Wyckoff style accumulation happening in here because we're in a ranging context. We're not in an uptrend context right now. Like for things to change and to be actually in an uptrend context on Bitcoin, we'd be looking at this level right in here, right? You'd look for us to break out above it and then to consolidate on it. Now we're in an uptrend context and we can start looking for more breaks to come to say we go for new ones. But right now down in here, totally just a ranging context. Exciting to see some green because we've been stuck for 40+ days. But I'm still just sticking with the things that I've been watching for the last several months in here to say, hey, I'm not going to get too pumped just yet. Let's see more come out of Ethereum. Let's go ahead and invalidate this whole thing, right? Let's get ourselves a nice rise out of there and completely negate any of that. Let's see Cardano get through here and invalidate any of that. And let's just see the markets move in general. But right now, the current move that we have right now has the potential to be a throwback on some of these coins and still the ranging context happening here for Bitcoin, considering we didn't get very far above our range that we've been in for 43 days. So I assume and stick with the idea of ranging still seems likely until something more comes out of it and proven otherwise. And that's what I'm just going to be kind of sitting back waiting on. And for those who are going through this type of a phase in the market for their first time, like if you kind of piled into crypto when it was all over national television and Wall Street bets, and you kind of just jumped in at all-time highs, this is what it's like when we try to move our way back up. We try to work it and see, can the bottom come in? Can the bottom come in? And then once the bottom comes in, then we try to say, okay, great. Now can we start seeing, can we move higher? And if we move higher, where's the next level where we're going to find problems at? And then after we get there, where's the next place we can find problems at? Say, okay, we're getting to all the retracement levels. Now, where's the next problem? Next place we're going to find problems at? And then we get through those, then it starts getting really exciting. And so what you usually will see is you'll see that, hey, it's a hard grind. It's a hard grind back up. If this even is the bottom for Ethereum, as long as we can hold it and you can start working your way back up. And the media is not going to cover it. Forums aren't going to be YOLOing exciting. It's a tough grind making your way back up. And you look at every single resistance level your whole way up there. And you're like, all right, here's a worry spot. Here's a worry spot. Here's a worry spot, worry spot, worry spot, worry spot. It's like that the whole way back up. And then once you get through an all-time high, that's when the television channels will turn it on and tell everybody about it. And by that time, it's like, hey guys, we're going to go to $10,000. And it's like, oh my gosh, Ethereum's going to go all the way to $10,000. Dude, I better buy it, man. I mean, it's in a new all-time high. But what I always talk about is percentages, right? So by the time you break through all-time high and you're going for 10 grand, congrats, you're going for 105%. But actually the bulk of the move, the bulk of the gains were actually made on the ride back up to the all-time high, where 444% was made during that whole terrible grind of going back through all of these areas. So if it's your first rodeo on having to go on your way back up, trying to find the bottom, and then sometimes it's not the bottom, and finally it turns around, and then we have to work through these things. It's just kind of how it goes. It's a big grind. You learn a lot along the way. You'll learn a lot about resistances. You learn a lot about retracements along the way, and those are all really important things to learn. But this is how it goes. So in the coming days, first steps, let's get a little bit more than what we've actually gotten at this point so we can rule out the throwback on some of these. And let's get Bitcoin further away from this bottom ranging area to start heading back up to 25K to kind of get more assurance, or at least more elements pointing to this being a broader Wyckoff accumulation. Because right now we're still stuck down here. We can start scooting our way back up. Definitely help me breathe a little bit more of a sigh of relief if we can get further up in the range. And so like looking at the stuff that's been going on for the last 43 days, things I'm looking at here, right? So this is just small time frame stuff, and we'll kind of play with this just to see how it goes in here, right? I hate doing stuff on super small time frames, but the things I'm watching in here is, right, can you visually see anything out of this? Or does it just look like a bunch of slop to you? For me, obviously, I study Wyckoff accumulations a lot in here. And so we're going on 40-something days happening in here. And what do I see happening in here is I see selling climax, automatic rally, secondary test, then a secondary test in phase B, one more push up, and then we finally have our spring come back down to the lows. And then we're testing. And then boom, what would this be? What's the thing we've been talking about a lot over there on the XRP price chart? This phase we talked about right here so much. What do we call it? Is that if this was a Wyckoff accumulation range happening in here, what would this phase be? This would be your sign of strength phase. So what usually happens in here, we have sign of strength, and then off and away you go. So that would be the optimum thing to see happening here. This would be a fully completed Wyckoff accumulation on this shorter time frame, right? And again, that's taking this portion into context, right? There's obviously a bigger one at play in here. But in order to leave this range right in here, I'm looking to see that this is forming a sign of strength. So as long as it can hold in here, this is looking pretty good for being a completed Wyckoff accumulation range on a 43-day time period. And I'm optimistic for it. But again, I still take a look at the bigger picture of where we're at, is that even if it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that, we're done in here entirely. But this looks pretty optimistic that we are creating a sign of strength right now, if we can get further up in the range. So, all right, guys, that's where we're at. We had a lot of green in the last couple of days, but that's what's going on in the markets. I'm trying to get this recorded early. The stock market still hasn't opened yet. It's about to. We'll see what the markets have in store for us today. Tried to make this quick because I have a lot going on pretty much here with the YouTube channel. I'm spending a lot of time in these communities with the big XLS update coming over there on Monday for NFTs over there on the XRP ledger. So super busy week for me, and probably working through the weekend as well. But all right, that'll be it for this one. That's what I see happening out there in the market. I hope that you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.